Hi, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about Ark Invest valuation model for Square and why the Cash App may very well be the future of banking. Here's a clip from the future showing what that means for big banks.
Now watch.
The future is going to be really weird. But okay, let's get back to the Cash App. Ever since it was created at a hackathon in 2013, the Cash App has continued to grow into a more and more compelling concept. And it's the reason Square is poised to become a leader in the financial services industry. So today, we're going to summarize Ark Invest valuation model for Square, take a look at what this means for big banks if they don't adapt quickly, and finally, we'll look at Square's current stock price and what kind of returns we can expect going forward as investors.
Show me the money! Show me the money!
Okay, let's dive right into Ark Invest valuation model for Square. This article was written by Max Friedrich, who's an analyst for Ark Invest. He wrote this back in September of 2020, so about 6 months ago. This will give us a nice opportunity to see how the model is holding up 6 months later. And the conclusion they came to is that Square stock price should be about $375 per share in 2025. And they're basing that on a 19% annual compound growth rate. And they give us the key assumptions. For one, they're assuming that this is only focused on Square's US opportunities. They're not factoring in the international opportunities that Square has. Then they talk about the Cash App product evolution and how they've added debit cards and direct deposit and all these cool features since it was released in 2014. And then they give 10 different scenarios in the resulting Square share price, just based on primary Cash App users, secondary users, and things of that nature. But what's really interesting about this article is that they provide a link to the spreadsheet that Ark Invest put together to come up with their valuation for Square. So this is like their formula for how they value Square. So what I did was I took that Excel spreadsheet and I cleaned it up a little bit and synthesized it, and I put it into a Google spreadsheet. And I'm going to share a link to this in the description. It's going to be read only, but you can go in, you can copy this and put it into your own spreadsheet and start, kind of playing around with the numbers and coming up with your own valuation model for Square based on Ark Invest research. So I think that's a really cool thing to be able to do. And one thing I want to mention is that, I'm not an investment expert. I went to school for finance, but I'm certainly no investment expert. So please do your own due diligence and make sure that you really wrap your head around these numbers and come up with your own conviction as to whether or not Square is a good investment, because it's really important to understand that in your own mind personally and not just go by what other people are saying. So with that out of the way, let me just dive into the numbers a little bit here. If we look at the Ark Invest model for the Square share price in 2020, we see that they came up with $79 per share. Now, what's interesting about this is that the actual Square stock price in 2020 was closer to 167. When this article was released, I think it was about 165 per share. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us what a lot of us already know, is that the market is forward-looking, especially lately. So in this case, it's looking forward about 2 years, and the market's pricing in the potential growth of Square and where Square could go over the next 2 years or so, which I think is pretty reasonable. So if we look at Ark Invest's projected stock price for 2023, we see that it's $225. Now, what's interesting about that is that the actual stock price today is almost exactly $225, and we're in 2021. So again, 2 years later, the price is justified. So we can extrapolate this all the way out to 2025. See that based on Ark Invest model, the stock price should be about $374. But due to the forward-looking nature of the market, we can actually assume that Square will hit this price sometime around 2023. So that would give us about a 65% return on our investment. If we were to put, say $10,000 into Square today, we'd make $6,500 by doing nothing for 2 years, which I think is pretty good. Yeah, and you can see some of the metrics that it's based on. So one of the most important metrics here is gross payment volume. And this is important for us to look at as investors because it measures the total amount in dollars of card payments processed by merchants using Square's system. So that's really the bread and butter of Square's business model is the small businesses that use it. And this gives you sort of the gross payment volume, that's being generated each year. So Ark Invest is assuming this is going to go from 127 billion to 297 billion. That's with a 19% CAGR. Then they're also assuming that the monthly active users will grow from 32 million all the way up to 75 million. And they're assuming the average revenue per user will go from $64 per user to $263 per user in 2025. Now, my favorite part of this valuation model is the valuation formulas themselves. So if we start with the stock price, right? So 2022, they're saying it should be 167, and we work our way backwards, right? So we just take the market cap here, 76 billion, divide that by the number of outstanding shares, and you get your share price. A lot of us know that. But how do they come up with the market capitalization? So if we click the formula, we see that they take the enterprise value, they add cash and cash equivalents, and they subtract long-term debt, and they get the market cap. You might say, okay, that makes sense. But how do they get the enterprise value? They get the enterprise value by taking EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. This is a very common metric in the investing world. And then they use what's called an EBITDA multiple. So they take EBITDA and they multiply it by that multiple of 18, and they get their enterprise value. So if we look at the average EBITDA multiple by sector, of large cap US companies, we can see that in December 2020, it ranged anywhere from 14 in the utility sector to all the way up to 26 in consumer discretionary sector. So 18 falls right in the middle of the high and the low range of EBITDA multiples. So I think it's a reasonable number to use. And I think that's really interesting because these EBITDA numbers, every company releases them. It's public information. You can take this and you can apply a multiple to that, and you can see what the stock price should be based on this formula. And then you can look forward and, apply your own compound annual growth rate to any company you like, and you can plug these numbers in and you can start, evaluating companies on your own and start finding really good value and figuring out where you want to invest your money. So I just love that Ark Invest was able to provide this information to their readers. And I, for one, am going to be using this to come up with my own valuations of companies, and I'll be making videos and sharing them with you as the viewers. I think another interesting thing to note here is the total addressable market. So we see that the market, it's going to grow a little bit, but you can see that their penetration of the market is going to grow pretty significantly from 3.2% to 5.5%. And that's going to spell bad news for banks because I think this number is going to continue to grow. And before you know it, Square is going to be, penetrating 10% of the market. So that's going to be trouble for banks. And if they don't adapt quickly, it's going to be hard for them to keep up simply because Square has the advantage of using software. And, they're really tuned into social media. And, with peer-to-peer transfers, there's a lot of social pressure that comes with that. And Square knows all this. So they're penetrating the market better than anyone right now. And, this growth model is really exciting. And I think they're a really great company to invest in. So there's also a tab here for assumptions. Again, this is only focused on the US opportunity, 19% CAGR, assuming Square doesn't monetize 60% of their monthly active users, which is very conservative, I think. But anyway, like I said, I'll link this in the description. Please let me know if you think this is a good valuation model. I'm curious to hear what you use to evaluate stocks, any kind of formulas or resources you might use to come up with your own stock valuations. Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear it. But yeah, if you like content like this, please be sure to like and subscribe. We're going to be doing all different valuation videos like this with different companies. So we'd love to hear what you think. And we'll be looking forward to the next one. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.